I guess what a lot of people don't realize is that because kids don't have the ability to actually communicate what they need a lot of times, they actually are in a state of anxiety even when you don't realize that they are. And a lot of behaviors come out because of fear and anxiety. And people are looking at their kid and thinking that they're being rebellious, or, they're angry, or they are trying to be difficult, when in reality, it's a cry for help because they are scared or anxious or they don't feel good. All these things can be true for both adopted and biological children. And so, considering that first, before you even go to homeopathic remedies, is often super, super helpful, and at least can make the homeopathic remedies actually more effective if you do need to start them.
Welcome to the Simple Homeopathy Podcast. Your hosts are Sandra Nardoni, Nicole Pavlik, and Heather Strickland, three practical homeopaths whose mission is to educate, empower, and encourage mamas like you to confidently use the practical homeopathy approach to take back your health. Homeopathy is a system of natural medicine discovered in the 1700s by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann and is not supplements, botanicals, or herbalism. If you'd like to learn more, brew a cup of tea or coffee and keep listening.
Welcome to the Simple Homeopathy Podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about some back to school things. We're going to be talking about anticipatory anxiety, say that 10 times fast, and how all of that ties in with adults, kids, pets, all that kind of thing. And also some things that you might want to consider before you ever even turn to homeopathy. So first, we're going to start with Heather, who has just a short and instructive story about the fantastic remedy called aconite, otherwise known as Aconitum napellus.
Yes. So for Christmas, our son gave us tickets to, and I'm totally dating me by my age right now when I tell you what concert he bought us tickets to.
Yeah, don't date us.
Okay. Well, when I heard my mom talk about these groups called Def Leppard and Journey and Steve Miller. No, I'm kidding. I grew up listening to them. Anyways, they are older than me. I will say that. However, he got us tickets to go see them for Christmas, and I am okay in smaller arenas, like some kind of indoor concert or whatever, but going into big stadiums with like tons and tons of people, I don't have panic attacks. It's not that severe, but it does cause me some anxiety. I just don't like being around that many people all at one time.
What are your symptoms that you feel?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It is. Yeah.
It's almost like you're a homeopath.
I mean,
yeah, weird.
No,
Yeah.
you know.
So it's like that anticipation of like, I kind of am thinking like, oh my gosh, I have to always have like an exit plan. Like, where am I going if there's a fire? Where am I going if, whatever, they napalm us? I don't know. But I just get anxious around that many strangers because everybody's really close. And I don't mind being close to you guys, but I don't really like being that close to people like
Everybody.
And also it was like 90 degrees that day. It was super hot. I'm like, don't touch me. So anyways, and I get a little bit of like kind of a stomach ache and just feel kind of jittery.
Okay.
So nothing like earth shattering, but just uncomfortable feeling. And I wanted to enjoy myself and have a good time.
Right. So what did you do about that, Heather?
Oh, I took some aconite on the way down to Pittsburgh. And then I took I took another dose about halfway through the show because it was long. Like it was almost 5 hours of music. So it was a long, but I ended up having so much fun. The weather was beautiful. The bands were amazing. And I had a great time because I wasn't feeling all nervous and like I had to be on guard kind of thing.
So you didn't feel any of those feelings that you just described?
Nothing.
Prior. That's awful.
And
amazing.
I knew it worked too because my husband was even like, wow, we had a really great time. Like you weren't a psycho.
So awesome.
You didn't just sit there and be like,
you're fun to be
we
with.
had
right
fun.
now.
I was singing and like, I'm not going to say I was dancing because I don't really dance, but I was singing along and like actually talking to some of the people around us. And it was a really great time.
Instead of rocking in place and being in a black hoodie.
Okay, my thumb.
And we're not, just for the record, guys,
We're not mocking.
not trying to minimize anybody that feels anxiety. We just are trying to make light of the situation a little bit, but anxiety can be a really difficult thing.
Right.
It is
And
really
that's what I mean. Like what I was dealing with is not anywhere near what a lot of people deal with on a daily basis. Like I don't feel that all the time. It's just in like weird new situations. And
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's debilitating to me. But again, I wanted to be able to have a good time. And that's
Right.
what it allowed me to do.
That's
So,
awesome. That's awesome.
So then my other little aconite sidebar is that we have an Aussie Doodle who is very
They're
super
super
sweet.
Anyone who doesn't know what that means a dog.
Oh yeah.
Just
It's a
Andy.
dog that's a mixture between an Australian Shepherd
And
and
a poodle.
a poodle.
So she got way more of the Australian Shepherd, which is a herding guard dog, basically. And so I am her herd, and she must protect me at all costs in every situation.
Barked at me an awful
She-
lot when she met me.
And she never does that. It's so weird. I think because she could smell the
She
stuff.
spelled
So there was-
competition.
there
I had
was
a German
some-
Shepherd
Yeah.
smell on me.
I thought you were gonna say I think it's because she smelled Nicole.
Well,
like
her
No,
dog.
I have a dog.
No, her
she
dog.
smelled that bad, but okay.
I have a dog, not that bad. I did shower. Most of the time anyway.
Anyway, so Shasta, my dear dog, is a little bit frantic. Like if there's a squirrel 3 blocks away, she's like bring out all the guns and the cannon and everything. Like she's on it and ready to go. And so I have started giving her aconite. I give it to her in a 30, like every couple of days, and it just kind of helps like tone that down a little bit where she's not so anxious. And then I also did it 4th of July week.
Mhm.
I don't mean
Yeah.
weekend. I don't mean 4th of July. I mean the 2 weeks on either side of 4th of July, because I live in like, I feel like there's neighbors who have competitions
Oh yeah.
of
They
the
put
fireworks.
like
Oh my gosh, like a week before.
Yeah.
And it's like the War of 1812, basically.
Mhm.
I love it, but I know animals don't always love it. But she's so chill, and she just like she lays there, and even the big booms, what's like the big giant ones that rock the whole house, she doesn't even like pick her head up.
If she has aconite.
Yes.
If not aconite, what does she act like?
She's a little anxious.
Okay.
And kind of like pacing and walking around and stuff.
And I think
So,
it's important to note in this little scenario that you took aconite in a 30 for yourself, 30C potency,
Mhm.
which if you're new to homeopathy, there are potencies. They start at 1x and go all the way up to like
10M.
10M and even
Even
higher.
right.
Sometimes you can get a 50M. And so that is called a potency. A lot of people have questions about that, especially as it pertains to children and pets. But you give the same potency to an adult, a child, or a pet. It doesn't matter who it is,
Or
how big they are, chicken, whatever, cow.
Elephant, doesn't matter.
The only exception to that, I believe, actually is an elephant.
You did more.
Yes,
Because they're
elephants
like
and horses, things that are really big.
They might
You
need a
want
little
them
more.
to get enough of the medicine itself, but the potency itself
Right.
is
You don't have to go to a 50M for the elephant.
right.
It's you just
It's
get
just
a
like,
larger dose.
let's say one dose is 5 pellets of 30C.
Mhm.
For a horse, I would give 10 pellets of 30C.
right.
So that's just a little side note that people often ask questions about. They're very gentle. They're relatively like as safe as you can pretty much get with something like this, but you want you just give the same potency
Right.
for
You
Yeah.
don't have to
You
adjust the
can't-
dose for age or size
Right.
unless you're
Right.
treating
It's
towards your elephant.
important to note that you can't overdose on homeopathy.
right.
You can't take too much of it.
Right.
My daughter has put that to the test actually. I don't know if you guys want me to share that quick little
Sure.
side story.
Yeah.
But I have a little 4-year-old, and when she was 2, she used to like to eat all of my
Because
remedies because it tastes like sugar.
Mhm.
And so that really kind of freaked my mother-in-law out one time when she ate like half a bottle of my remedies, and I was out and my mother-in-law called me up and she's like, oh my God, she, just ate half a bottle of whatever remedy it was. And I was like, she's fine. And my mother-in-law was like, I'm not fine. I probably
she needed
should've-
some
I
aconite.
probably
Yeah.
should have given her some aconite. at
Yeah, that would have
point.
helped her tremendously.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But yeah, I actually had to have a talk with my daughter at one point because she was eating all my remedies.
Oh my goodness.
But she had put it to the test many times. She had eaten pretty much a whole bottle of coffee at one time, which can help you guys sleep if you have some sleep issues. And I was like, good for you. I hope you sleep really well tonight.
That's right.
It didn't affect her because she didn't need
She
it.
didn't
but-
need it, so she
Yeah.
didn't have any results from it.
Right,
Right.
right. So she didn't overdose on the remedy. It didn't harm her, it didn't cause any side effects or anything like that. So
Right.
for those of you guys that are new to this and you have dosing questions, just know that homeopathy is completely safe and effective and you can't take too much of it. And if you do want to learn more, we do offer classes and things like
We have
that.
more in-depth
Delve
classes
deeper
that-
into that
yeah.
topic.
And we'll be talking more as we get deeper into the podcast. This is, going to be one of our like first 5 episodes. Honestly, we don't
Right.
know which one, but we are we're going to give
Do
you
like a basic
plenty of
intro.
opportunity to get
Okay.
into these classes and things like that if you want to. But anyway, hopefully that'll give you kind of a good overview of that, since you were talking about your dog and yourself. I
Yes.
thought it'd be a good time to mention that.
Yes.
So anyway, I am actually going to kind of take this conversation today because I in particular love to work with children and families. I adopted 2 children from foster care when they were 5 and 6, and at the time we were mostly using supplementation, and I was pretty successful with the things I was doing. I did use homeopathy, but I didn't know that's what it was. So in fact,
Like most of us.
right, one of the main major things that my son was dealing with that didn't seem to be affected positively by any other natural solution, we actually solved with homeopathy. But at the time I didn't understand what homeopathy was, and I didn't even know that that's what I was using to solve the problem.
It was just a good natural product.
It was just a natural product and I didn't really understand what it was. It was a recommendation from someone and I did it and it worked. So anyway, all that to say, that actually kind of is one of the reasons I started thinking about this topic, because when we were in the middle of his adoption, he had moved in, he was having a lot of trouble with night terrors that would last for hours at a time. And they were very dangerous because we couldn't wake him up. And we ended up we had to sleep outside of his bedroom for the first year that he was with us, until we found the solution for this problem, because we were afraid he would fall down the stairs.
Right.
And he was just frantic and he would run around his room and he would scream for help. And it was horrible. And so he had both of my kids had a ton of anxiety, and anticipatory anxiety was a huge part of what they dealt with too. And so I kind of, as I was thinking about this topic, I thought, there's some things that parents can do that they may not have thought of, whether or not you have adopted kids or you just have a child that struggles with anxiety in general, and they're your biological child. There are things you can do before you even think about homeopathy that could be really great for helping your child to overcome anxiety. So I'm going to give you a couple of those tips first, because I think that might really help those of you who are looking for some real practical solutions for these kinds of things. Of course, everybody knows that food can really impact kids and their behaviors and anxiety and things like that.
In good and bad ways.
In good and bad ways. And we did find that food was a huge factor with our kids, especially when it came to processed sugars. Processed sugars are absolutely horrible they're horrible for everybody, but especially if you have a child that struggles with things like anxiety or ADHD or hyperactivity or sensory disorders, any kinds of things like that, which my kids pretty much had check all the boxes, all of the above. They came with a slew of letters behind their names when they moved in. Processed sugars are a huge deal. And removing those from the diet can often be a huge help. Now, I also understand how stressful it can be to do that, because pretty much everything on the shelves these days has processed sugar. And you may not even think about it, but when you buy something like Cheez-Its, that's actually pretty much sugar. Anything made with white flour immediately turns into sugar in your body. And that was something that we really had to deal with a lot in our house, is like trying to figure out how are we going to feed these kids without giving them a lot of processed sugar. Now, that particular thing did not solve my son's anxiety. It just didn't. It did solve some other problems that we can talk about in a different podcast. But all that to say, that is a big thing. And I always tell parents to look at that first. If you cannot change that, or if you change it and it doesn't help, I would say the next thing to look at would be to do something that we did regularly with our kids that made an absolutely huge difference. And that is basically creating motor memory that allows your child to feel safe in a situation. So if your child is, we'll use the example of school. I wish I had known this. We ended up homeschooling, but the first 6 months that we had our son, he had already been in school, so he had to go to public school. And if I had known how to do this then, it would have helped us so much. But what we ended up doing later was we would practice doing things that were really hard for our kids, that caused them anxiety. And I guess what a lot of people don't realize is that because kids don't have the ability to actually communicate what they need a lot of times, they actually are in a state of anxiety even when you don't realize that they are. And a lot of behaviors come out because of fear and anxiety. And people are looking at their kid and thinking that they're being rebellious, or, they're angry, or they are trying to be difficult, when in reality, it's a cry for help because they are scared or anxious or they don't feel good. All these things can be true for both adopted and biological children. And so considering that first, before you even go to homeopathic remedies, is often super, super helpful, and at least can make the homeopathic remedies actually more effective if you do need to start them. So we would practice things. And a good example of this was our kids would have knockdown, drag out tantrums every time we left the house. It didn't matter if we were going to a birthday party or grandma's or someplace they absolutely loved. They had a huge stress reaction to leaving the house. Of course, there are a million reasons that could be, not the least of which is we were the fifth family that they had lived with, and they had been in the foster care system. So they had left a house, they'd left their house and never come back before. And that's really stressful. If you've adopted a child, no matter how old they are, it is always traumatic for that child to be separated from their parent. I don't care if that is the worst parent on the face of the planet. They were born to that person. They were created in that person's womb, in that woman's womb. They know that voice, they know that body. That's who they want to be with, even if that person is abusive. And so that separation is a huge deal, and it creates a lot of stuff in the brain that actually creates anxiety. So we would practice leaving the house. And the way we did it was we would say, we're going to go and we're gonna get McDonald's, for instance. We didn't do McDonald's a lot, but that was actually a good thing because then it was really motivating.
Right.
And what we would say is, when you guys were really little, you don't even remember this, but really bad things happened when you left the house several times. And what that has done is it's caused your brain to actually be like, oh no, we're leaving the house every time we leave the house.
Yeah.
And then that causes you to feel like you want to have a tantrum and lay on the floor and kick and scream and hit mom. And of course, you can't do that. Like, that's not something we can do for the rest of our lives. We've got to fix that. I know you guys don't like throwing tantrums. That's not fun. And I would be like, is it fun throwing a tantrum? And they'd be like, no, and they're laughing or whatever. And I'd say, so today, what we're going to do is we're going to practice putting on our shoes and getting in the van without having a tantrum. Can you guys do that? And they would always say yes. We would practice putting our shoes and getting in the van. We would drive straight to McDonald's and get an ice cream cone and then straight back home again. So we didn't ever run another errand. We did exactly what we said we were going to do. And we would focus on that behavior or that thing for like a month before we would move on to something else. And for your child, you might have to practice putting on your shoes and not even leaving the house. I mean, it can be that minute. We're going to practice putting on our shoes and then we're going to take our shoes off. Like, it is very, very important that they get a motor memory feeling of what it feels like to actually do the thing that they're anxious about
And still
without
be safe.
reacting, and they're still safe.
Yeah.
So that is a huge thing that you can do if you have a child that is really showing a lot of negative behaviors around any kind of thing, like they do that before they go to school or whatever, especially if you've already investigated what's happening at school and you found out that their teacher is kind to them and that they get lots of hugs and the kids are not being mean to them. So this is in situations where they're not being bullied, where you know they're going to a good classroom with a good teacher, all that kind of thing. And that was what was happening with our son. He had a great teacher who was so wonderful. She was a wonderful person. He was in a room where he felt safe, but I was still having to chase him around the block every morning to get him into the van. It was stressful. We were all very, very annoyed. And I wish I had homeopathy when it was happening, but I didn't know. And so all that to say, be a detective for your kids. Don't go into a situation and make assumptions about them until you really have all the information. It's very easy, especially if you have multiple kids or if you've got several kids with bad behaviors that are really, stressing out the family. It's very easy to default to being a disciplinarian and punishing. But let me encourage you to think about being a disciplinarian in a way that doesn't even involve punishment, but instead involves boundaries and teaching. Because when that happens, then you set the brain up for success in other ways. If you start with that foundation, then you can move on to the remedies that will help finish the job. So in this case, the remedy that I would use would be gelsemium. Gelsemium 30C or 200C, depending on what works for your child. Sometimes you give a child 30C and it's just like magic and it works wonderful. Sometimes you see a shift, but it's not that big of a deal. Like it's not big enough and you want to try the next potency or maybe even the potency down from that, because potencies are very funny. They don't necessarily work like what you would think a Tylenol will work. Like if I had a headache, I might take one Tylenol if it was really, mild, and I might take two if it were a worse headache. It doesn't work that way with homeopathy. With homeopathy, it's more of a where it's targeting in your body. I don't, it's hard to know exactly how it works because nobody really, I don't think, has solved that mystery. We just know it works. It just does. But you might do a 6C, you might do a 30C, you might do a 200C. Try all those out and see how it works and give it as frequently as needed. If you have a kid that is absolutely melting down, terrified to get on the bus or whatever it is, give him a gelsemium before he goes to bed. Give him when he gets up in the morning. Give him another one right before he walks out the door. And he will probably be able to get on that bus without having too much of a reaction. So
Sandra, I was just thinking as you were bringing up gelsemium, I don't know if we told people yet why we're giving gelsemium, right? Because what is this for? What is the gelsemium for?
gelsemium is for anticipatory
Anxiety, right?
It's
that's
great for that.
In the children is that anticipatory anxiety.
Right.
So
right. And it does a lot of other things actually too, but in this session, in this episode, we're talking about anxiety. So
yeah.
Mhm.
And it doesn't only have to be where it's an extreme reaction.
Right.
It could just be maybe they only have anxiety on Fridays before a spelling test.
Right. Exactly.
Or, like when there's going to be
a basketball game that they have to play in.
Right. It doesn't have to be something that they're feeling every day. It could just be maybe it's a little bit bigger, or be a band concert or a choir concert, things like that. So maybe they're fine most days.
Right.
And when it's a big event is when they're kind of feeling.
And it can be for adults or children too.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, that was something that I wanted to add before that I thought was interesting when you were talking about the child and some of the parenting tips that you were giving about that anxiety that they might be feeling. I started thinking of the elderly that have dementia.
Yes.
Because they are very much in the same boat where a lot of times the behaviors that you see from elderly with dementia are coming from that unsure place,
Like
that
fear.
anxiety and fear, and them not being able to express their needs and themselves. So I think giving that same patience and grace that you kind of were talking about for the child and doing these repetitive things
Mhm.
with them and these
Yep.
practice things with them, I think can also benefit the elderly with dementia as well.
Absolutely.
And so
Yeah.
for those of you out there that might be, taking care of your
Parents,
moms or
grandparents.
dads or
Mhm.
loved ones, I think that could be really good tips for them as well. And removing the processed sugar, I think that's huge in the elderly too.
Oh, yeah,
And I know we're
definitely.
focusing a little bit on the kids here, but
Mhm.
I think that helps them as well. And
And it helps you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Help
if
me
if
help
you
you.
are like, if you are feeling, I've got to tell you people, I was stressed out when we adopted our kids. I mean, I cannot even express the level of isolation, the level of fear that I had, because I remember talking with my husband at night and being like, are they going to be in prison by the time they're 17? Like, they were so out of control. It was so scary. And I could have used gelsemium back then, I could have, and in a lot of ways, we did a lot of things, we did take processed sugars out. I mean, we kind of went like over the top with some things. Like, I was grinding my own grain. I got goats and milked them. I mean, like, we were really, really trying very hard. But even with all of that, and this is important to know, you may be doing everything
Yeah.
that you have the ability to do, and your child is still
Sure.
doing these things. They're still struggling. And that is especially when homeopathy can help. And that's why I'm so passionate about this, because we would have made progress probably at least 2 or 3 times faster than we did. I got to tell you, my kids are 22 and 23. My daughter, actually, I knew that she would be good going to college, but she didn't know it. And actually has finally decided to go to college this year. She's actually going to stay on campus. And she was the one that literally gave me bruises all over my body. She was absolutely out of control. She was like a cat. Nobody would babysit our kids. Nobody would do it except one family. And God bless them. Because I don't know what we would have done. But I remember probably 5 years ago, my mom telling me that she, even like up until 3 or 4 years after we got them, she was like thinking, man, are they going to be, is our family going to be okay? Like, it was so extreme and so stressful. So if you are that person, whether they're biological or adopted, and you feel like you're doing everything in your power and nothing is working, I think really homeopathy is where it can just absolutely give you some relief. It may not solve the problem completely,
But it can maybe knock it down a few notches.
yeah,
like
and
from a
you
10.
should do it too. Like, you
Yes.
take it. Like, even if,
I was actually just gonna say, like,
Yeah.
it's just as important for the parents to have
Mm.
that
or caregiver
or whoever
it is
to be able to have that as well.
right.
Where where they're having that because they had anticipatory anxiety over whatever had happened and things, but you
I had
probably woke up every
anticipatory-
single morning thinking like, oh my gosh, what are we going to deal with today?
Yeah, I
Where
did.
you're-
just the way that you were talking before about the connectedness between the mother and the child
Mhm.
too. I think that oftentimes we feel each other's anxiety too.
Right.
I
Oh,
think it's
yeah.
important to note that
Yeah.
we're not just treating the child, but we're
Mhm.
treating us too, and that's
Mhm.
helping the child in turn.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you guys know this or not, but there's this thing in your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala, it is what releases the cortisol in your brain. And the cortisol is like the fight or flight chemical in your brain. And for children who have had trauma, and anybody, like, it can be trauma, it can be a traumatic birth. Like, some of you are sitting there going, my kid's not adopted, but he acts like this. It can be a traumatic birth, it can be vaccine injury, it can be any kind of thing like that. There is cortisol that flows through that child's brain, and because their amygdala is never shutting it off. And that actually burns up the frontal lobe of the brain. And that's where you make decisions. It's where impulsivity is held and where you connect with other people.
Yep.
And if that part of the brain is all burned up, it's very difficult for a child to act right. But here's the good news. That part of the brain can heal if
Woo.
A person who is in charge of the child is able to regulate themselves and teach that child how to be regulated. And your amygdala can affect another person's amygdala up to 10 feet away. So that means if you are regulated, they will be regulated. And I'm not talking about on the outside, I'm talking about what's going on up here. So if you're able to do deep breathing exercises or take gelsemium as soon as you wake up in the morning and you're able to feel that calm feeling, then you're going to be able, your brain literally will train your child's brain to be okay. And it will
Amazing.
actually help it heal. That's amazing. Like the brain is an amazing thing. And if you ever want to know more about that topic, there's an amazing book called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog.
It's a great book.
And it has a lot about the amygdala and about all of that, how all of that works, but it's really in layman's terms, so you can actually understand it if you're not a doctor. So
You're not a brain surgeon.
right. So anyway, I've been talking for a long time. I get really passionate about adoptive families and all of these kinds of situations because I lived it. I know what you're feeling if you're out there and that's what you're dealing with. And so I get pretty fired up. But do you guys have any stories specifically to gelsemium?
I love gelsemium for anticipatory anxiety for my son. Actually, he was vaccine injured. He had a lot of things going on. He's doing way much better now that we've changed our lifestyle to a holistic one and that we've implemented homeopathy. But he does struggle with some sensory issues sometimes. So even though we have the most amazing holistic dentist, we love him, we refer everyone to him, going to the dentist for him is just such a scary process for him.
I'm with them.
So
Right?
even though he knows that they're not going to hurt him, nothing bad's going to happen there, just sitting in the chair and just the light shining in your face and the loud sounds and the noises and the people are in your mouth and
Uncomfortable.
yeah, just all of these things that are happening makes him feel uncomfortable, and so he feels anxious. And so I'm one of those moms that likes to prepare my kids for things before we do them. However, for him, when you tell him too soon,
Right.
that
Yeah,
anxiety
getting him ramped up.
triggers even earlier.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to kind of bring up to this is if your child does know about something that is coming up, right, they're going to start that anxiety process earlier, like
Yeah.
as soon as they know it's coming up.
Right.
And gelsemium is something that you can give as soon as they're starting to feel that, right? So if you're anticipating taking your child to the dentist, or you're anticipating, for them to have a test at school, or whatever, the minute that starts happening, or even like the day before leading up to it, you can start dosing with gelsemium.
Yeah.
And you can even give it more like a chronic kind of thing. If you have a child that's chronically
That's always
anxious and gelsemium works in the moment for them, you can give it to them for a few months twice a day.
Yeah.
And you might see a huge shift and then stop giving it to them, see what happens. It might actually clear up most of the problem for them.
Yeah.
And then if
Yeah.
it recurs,
You just
start it again.
Yep.
Like it doesn't mean that it hasn't worked if it comes back. What you're looking for is less intense periods of anxiety further apart from each other.
Yeah, so that would be chronic, but my son, he just experiences this occasional anticipatory
He doesn't need it all the time.
Right. So for him, I would, like I said, he was definitely afraid of the dentist. And the first time I started giving him gelsemium, we drive an hour and 15 minutes to see our holistic dentist. He's that good. And so I would start dosing him frequently in the car. Maybe like every 15 minutes, I would start giving it to him. And the whole time we're in the car, and this is the first time we did this. And the whole time we're in the car, he's like, this isn't going to work. I'm still anxious. I don't want to go. You're the worst mom in the world. They're making me do this right now. But the whole time I would just be dosing him. And then we get into the waiting room, give him another dose. He's still anxious. He gets into the chair, give him another dose. He's still anxious. And then this time the dentist comes in. Now, previously the dentist would come in. He would start working on my son's mouth. And immediately my son would start getting upset. And every time, because my dentist is so good, he would stop and he would ask my son, "Are you okay?" My son would say yes. And he's like, "Am I hurting you?" And my son would say no. And eventually this was stop, go, stop, go. And he said, "Listen, every time you get upset, I have to stop to make sure you're okay. So if you're okay, like you kind of have to stop, getting upset." And of course, my son's probably thinking, "Yeah, I would if I could, right?"
Yeah. Right.
And so, but he wasn't able to control that. So this time, when I had dosed him with the gelsemium, the dentist had started working on him and went from start to finish and did not have to stop once.
Wow.
Wow.
And my son, and he was done within like minutes. It was so quick.
Right.
And at the end of it, my son just looked around. He was 9 at the time. And he's like, "We're done." Like, he couldn't believe that it worked. And
Right.
then the dentist walked out and he was like, "That was it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're done." And he's like, "I can't believe it worked." So it helped him get through that, but it didn't take away the fear for the next
It
time.
wasn't like he was sitting there going, "Oh wow, I feel like I'm about to get on the Ferris wheel."
Right, right.
He
It
still
took it
felt,
away for that
yeah,
moment
right.
for
But
him to
he
get
was
through
able
it.
to handle it.
Right,
He was able to handle what he needed to do and do it.
exactly. And so the next time that we had to go to the dentist, that fear for him was still there. And of course, he was like, "It worked last time, but it's not going to work this time." Right. So we went through the whole thing over again and it worked again.
Mhm.
And so eventually he started getting more and more comfortable knowing that this was going to work, still skeptical and still worried about the dentist, but he knew that it was going to work. And so he got confident enough where he would sit in the car and he would dose himself. So I would be driving, and as he started feeling anxious, he would start dosing himself, which was empowering to him to be able to
Control
know
it.
that he had something to help him
Right.
to get him through this. And so one of the last times we went, he made it like maybe only taking 2 doses, and he made it through the whole appointment. And he told the dentist, he was like, "We're still not friends, but he's like, but thank you, like,
Yeah.
it's like we're not quite there yet."
Yeah.
Maybe next time.
So
Well, and and folks, just so you know, like I know there are some of you out there going, "Oh my gosh, you gave your son that medicine and let him take it himself when he felt anxious?" Yes.
'cause
That's how
empowers
safe
them.
it is.
Yes.
And it empowers them because they know it's going to work. And guess what? It doesn't work like a drug. They don't feel some sort of weird euphoria or anything weird like that that
Right.
would make them addicted to it.
Right.
It helps them feel better and it balances their body. It makes their body do what their body was made to do.
Right.
And
know,
and that's the beauty of it.
I want to share something else because you just made me think of it. So
Okay.
you said how it doesn't make you feel addicted.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I love about homeopathy is that we're not masking symptoms here.
Right.
Right. What we're doing is, like Sandra said, we're bringing the body back into balance so that we can just feel calm and stable enough to get
Mhm.
through what we're getting through. And so when you said that, you reminded me of my daughter. So she's older. She's 20 now, but she has struggled with anxiety and some OCD and some things like that. And we use the Helio Stress combo, which
Mhm.
has it's a combination of a couple different homeopathic remedies. It does have aconite in it. And so she actually jokingly calls that her homeopathic Xanax. So she's never had a Xanax before. She doesn't know what that would feel like or anything like that. But she knows that people take
Xanax
when they
to
feel stressed.
Right.
Mhm.
And she knows that when she's feeling stressed, that she can
Can
take
take
this remedy. And again, it's the same empowerment of being able to take something
Mhm.
on your own and know that you're not going to feel that drugged feeling. You're just going to feel calm enough to bring it down to be able to function and
Right,
get through what
right.
you need to get through.
Yeah.
And so that's another, great remedy if somebody is struggling with anxiety and they kind of don't know where to start with this, right? The
Mhm.
Helios stress combination remedy is a really
Yeah, and
great.
if you don't know what Helios is, it's a pharmacy. It's based in England, and the remedies are extremely inexpensive, and it's 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 just a really good pharmacy. So they have so many years of experience. What are they, like 150 years old or
Yeah,
something?
Yeah.
And so you can buy combination remedies from them. They've done all of the testing to know what works together and what the potencies should be.
Yeah. And especially for new people, the
Mhm.
combo remedies and things are a
makes
great
it
place to
easy.
start,
Mhm.
whether it's anxiety or allergies or
Yeah, yeah.
what's the accident one?
The ABC is for the colds and flus.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Helios
so-
has the ABC for
Mhm.
colds and flus, which we're probably going to talk about in another
Mhm.
podcast.
Yes, for sure.
But they have the stress combo remedy, the
Mhm.
sleep combo remedy is another
Mhm.
one that, again,
Oh,
if you're-
Boron's Sleep Calm is
The
the
best.
bomb.com. Let me tell
Yeah.
you, I love that remedy.
And a lot of local stores, like if you want something close, a lot of like either grocery stores, health food stores, a lot of them will carry the
Yeah, I get
even
Boron.
Walmart
Yeah,
carries
Walmart,
that.
Walgreens,
Yeah.
CVS, they all do.
Vitamin shop,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of natural food, health
Whole
stores.
Foods actually has quite a few
They
boron
stop
remedies.
carrying them.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry,
We'll
News,
talk about that on another podcast,
Why?
but yeah,
We did.
Whole Foods decided to stop carrying them because Amazon took over
Yeah.
and they're selling
Yeah.
them on Amazon now.
Yeah.
And those of you guys that already know homeopathy kind of know this, but those of you just getting into it, you want to support those stores that are still carrying it
Right.
because sometimes there's emergencies and we need to get things quickly. And if
Yeah.
we can't run into a grocery store like that and be able
Right.
to access these remedies, we don't want to rely on the mail and having to wait
2-3
even a
days
couple
or
of days to get
Right.
something. We want to
Yeah.
be able to have it on hand.
Yeah.
So
yes.
definitely stock up on your remedies if you're not doing that already, but support your local, grocery stores or natural food stores that do carry these remedies for that reason.
Yeah. And just so you know, speaking of stocking up, remedies don't have an expiration date.
Yeah. that's their
So
topic.
they do
They
from
have
the
it
perspective
with
of the FDA forces them to put it on there. But our mentor told us a story about how she had a kit that dated back to 1911. And it was really not something she intended to use, but something happened at their house. She didn't have a remedy that she really needed. It was an emergency. So she cracked open that kit from 1911 that was supposed to be like a historic,
Kind of a
like
keepsake
like a
type thing.
keepsake present kind of thing, like with the old fashioned bottles and stuff. She popped open one of those bottles and took
The remedy.
that remedy, and it acted right away. So there's no expiration on these, which is amazing.
I mean, you will see an expiration date because they are required. The homeopathic medicines are regulated by agencies and they
Yeah.
are required to put dates on
Them, but it
most
doesn't. Yeah,
homeopaths will tell you that they really
they really don't have.
Disregard that.
Yeah, they really don't, unless you like run them through the
And
washer or
listen,
something.
even
if
then.
any of you guys, well,
Even then.
that's a whole nother
That's a
story.
whole other story.
But if any of you guys don't trust that your remedies aren't expired, if you want to send them over to me, I'd be glad
Happy
to
to
take
take
them.
Yeah, we'd be happy to take them
Yeah.
off your hands. Well, if you guys don't have any more stories about gelsemium in particular, I think I'm going to wrap this up. What do you think?
I
All
vote
right.
yes.
All right. Well, you guys, we have loved talking to you tonight and are so excited to have you on our next episode. So we would love for you to join us next time as we empower you to effectively use homeopathy to take back your family's health. See you later.
See you next
Later.
time.
Thanks for listening to the Simple Homeopathy podcast. Tune in next time for more education, empowerment, and encouragement as we discuss how you can take back your health through practical homeopathy. Please share and subscribe and leave us a review. And if you'd like to purchase merchandise to show off your natural mama pride, go to connectedmomlife.com/natural-mama for our latest homeopathy swag. See you next time.